Hey, what's up guys? My name is Moda and welcome back to the Mining Stacker YouTube channel. Today's video, pretty freaking exciting one. We do now have the official price point of the Antminer L9. So we're going to talk about that price. We're going to compare it to the competition. We're going to see how it stacks up. We're going to look at profitability. We'll look at future outlooks and kind of see if this thing is going to be worth getting. Okay, so for those of you guys who have been following, you know, this is one I've been having my eyes on. I have 100% been waiting for the price, and it is kind of in line where I wanted it to be, right? So this is one that's definitely high on the list. We're going to talk as to why, right? So if that sounds good, guys, stay tuned. Let's get to this thing. So let's get right to the price. So they did give it to us this morning, June 8th. It was supposed to come out yesterday, but did come out today. So the MSRP is $13,500. The after coupon price, though, which we know tends to be close to the street price, $9,450. So it did hit under that $10,000 price point, which is what we were looking for. Okay, so honestly didn't think we were gonna get it, but we kind of did get it. We're gonna have to wait to see what the actual street price is, but typically it's in this range, somewhere like 10 to 15% within there, right? Couple of things to note of here though. So typically a lot of us who are here in the US, we don't order from the Bitmain site typically just because we are going to get hit with those customs duties, those tariffs, right? So a lot of us tend to order from our favorite resellers and stores, but for those of you who are outside of the US or this is of no concern to you, understand that this is going to be slightly different. So they have done this in the past with one of the releases, I can't remember which one, but this is going to be a typical sale. So this, you have to pay the deposit ahead of time if you're going to order from Bitmain directly. Okay. So currently it is open from now until the 13th. You would make that deposit. If you don't have any coupons, you can go on bitfufu.com. That's their official marketplace for the coupons and get it there. But just a couple things to note. Just because you make that deposit, you still have to make the purchase June 14th at 10 a.m. That's only going to be for the people who deposited. But just because you deposit that money does not guarantee you a spot. You still have to go in there. You still have to try to purchase it. So the last time they did this, not everybody who deposited was able to purchase a unit because they got beat out by the other people. Okay. So keep in mind, the competition will probably be pretty great. And then there's some huge things to consider here. Number one, each person, there's a limit of 50 per account. So there's going to be a lot of competition there. The biggest thing for me though, look at Q5. Can the deposit be refunded directly? Answer, the deposit is non-refundable. Okay, so this is huge. Make sure you fully understand that it's non-refundable, but can be transferred to your balance for purchasing all products. So that doesn't mean you're going to lose it. It just means that it's going to stay in that Bitmain account and you're going to have to purchase something else from Bitmain. Okay, it doesn't have to be at the moment, but just your money is going to be tied up there. So make sure you do fully understand that for those of you who are considering ordering from them directly, right? Most of us tend to order again from our favorite stores to kind of avoid all this, but just make sure you guys fully understand that. All right, so street price $94.50. We're gonna have to see how close they are. So far the only listing based off of the new information so far is from Nhash. There are other listings that have been up. I know like Viperatech, Miner Bros, ASIC Marketplace had that fake listing and they had prices based off of that. One of them started a price and the others kind of all followed in line, but that wasn't based off of this information. Okay, so understand that those are probably going to change based off of the new info. This is the first one I've seen that's based off of the new information. They actually waited until the official Bitmain announcement for them to list it. So props to them for actually doing it the correct way, right? So 12K is where they have it listed at. So this is not including shipping. Keep in mind, it's still another $250 shipping on top of that. Okay, which is quite a big amount over the $94.50, right? Realistically, I was kind of expecting like 10.5, maybe 11. This is a little bit heftier, but make sure you fully understand that Scrypt ASICs tend to be some of the most popular. Okay. So we're going to have to wait to see where the other stores list, but don't be surprised to them kind of follow this trend. Okay, we're going to have to kind of wait and see what the others do. Hopefully some of them list a little bit lower. Maybe once this officially goes for sale, so after the 14th, maybe we'll see a few differences in price. But kind of not looking good in a sense at this price point, right? Realistically, we want to see it under, especially considering that we have the MSRP now. Okay, so definitely going to keep our eyes on this. When I do the next ASIC pricing update video, we will be talking about this because it'll be after the 14th. Hopefully we'll have a better idea of what actual street price is going to be. Okay. So looking at that, let's look at potential of this thing. Okay. So this is a Scrypt ASIC. So you're going to merge mine Doge and LTC. Can also do bells. I don't know, a lot of people are into that. That's not something I would be, honestly, not concerned with. That's something I literally wouldn't care about, right? I have zero interest in that coin, but that option is also there. So what I'm basing everything off of, it's a little bit more conservative. Okay. So Dogecoin currently at 15 cents. Again, I'm more conservative with my estimates. So make sure you factor that in. You got to factor in your own estimates of how bullish you are on Doge. I know a lot of people love this thing. Not that I'm bearish on it. I'm just not super bullish on it. Right. So it's currently at 15 cents. Previous all-time high was at 63 cents. It did go higher than that. That's just what the daily was. But this cycle is very different, right? There are a ton of meme coins, and we're not even in the bull market yet. Okay, so factor how many meme coins are on the top 200 right now. Dilution is going to be a big thing for this. Okay. The other big factor here is the amount of coins in circulation. So we know Doge is highly inflationary. There are a lot more coins in circulation than there were back then. Okay, and there's still going to be a lot more that are printed in the next year. Factor that in. So for those reasons, it's not that I'm bearish on it, but my personal price target would be about 50 cents. Okay, hopefully it goes well beyond that. You know, we have Elon potentially pumping this thing, can go way higher. Again, I try to be conservative. Kind of the same story with Litecoin. Okay, so previous all-time high was 360. Okay, this was in the May peak. Remember, we had a double peak. The November peak was 262. Okay, currently at 80 bucks. My target would be 3xing from here. Okay, so kind of similar story on both fronts. Okay, so because of that, the interest here for me at least wouldn't necessarily be to hold these coins, right? Typically all the other ASICs, I am bullish, or there is a reason I'm holding those, just because it's a degen play, there's a potential high risk, high reward kind of thing, or it's coins I believe in. Okay, kind of different here. Not super bullish on either of those coins. My play here would be specifically for like unminable, nice hash, or just manually selling into other coins that I feel more bullish on. Okay, to me at this point, I feel there are a lot of other coins that I do just have better feelings on, that I do feel more bullish, that it will do potentially higher than that, potentially a 4, 5, 6, 8, 10x from here versus the potential 3x from here. Okay, or even just going into Bitcoin itself. Okay, that would definitely be more of my target with this thing, more than anything, more than the typical strategy, which is mining and holding all the coins. Okay, so I would still kind of be doing the same thing, paying the electric out of pocket and such, but I would definitely maybe hold a little Doge, but realistically, it would probably all to swap either into BTC or something else I have more faith in. Okay, so saying that, it's like, so what is the appeal then? Well, the appeal for me is I do want something more consistent, more of a safe play. Okay, as we look at the overall daily emissions, Doge is currently number 2. Okay, number 1 being BTC. BTC would definitely be the safest play, but you guys know I'm more of a degen. I'm not really here for a safe play. In this case, I would like at least one thing that is a little bit more stable, a little bit more safe, something that I feel will be profitable the rest of this freaking bull market. Okay, that's why like a Scrypt ASIC is very appealing. An ETC ASIC is very appealing. And then we all know number 3 here is Caspa, so that would also very appealing for me, but not from the perspective of it being a safer play. Although I'm very bullish on it, think it's going to do well. The downfall here is the amount of yield, right? So currently 12 months from now, yield is going to be extremely, extremely tiny, okay? Versus with Dogecoin, Litecoin, it feel very good about it being continually profitable throughout that time, and even potentially after the bull market into the bear market. This is one that I potentially would be okay even running it all the way through there. Okay, so it kind of depends on your goals, where your things are going to land. Are you just going to, mine and run this thing into the ground, or do you plan to sell it in the bull market? Different thoughts, right? Different goals. For me personally, I'm kind of torn on where we're going to go, whether it's going to follow a traditional cycle, or are we going to peak early? I'm more in the camp, at least open to the possibility of us peaking earlier, potentially like in the spring. Everything does feel way ahead of time. So I'm ready for that possibility. I'm not fully convinced either way, but it is something I'm open to that idea, right? So most likely we'll be selling a good chunk by then. But this is one, again, I wouldn't mind holding beyond that and risking all the way through in case we do fall into the normal typical cycles. Okay. So that's why like a Scrypt ASIC or ATC ASIC are extremely appealing for those reasons, right? Because again, the ASICs I have, freaking CKB, which luckily did pan out well, it did pop early. Okay. But that's one that if it didn't have that pop, if it was in that same range where it was before, super risky. Cadena, super risky. Handshake, extremely, extremely risky, right? And then Caspa, which again, in a sense, I guess you can call it risky just because, again, 12 months from now, the yield is going to be a fraction of what it is now, right? So I definitely do want something more stable in my farm, okay? And this is why it is extremely appealing, okay? Now let's look at another big factor to consider, especially something we always look at with these new ASICs, especially with things like Caspa. The hash rate difficulty, extremely important. It's a little bit different here when we look at LTC and Doge, mainly because the network is much, much more mature, right? We do know there's made a ton of L7s. There's a ton of L3s out there. There's a ton of those gold shells. There's a ton of other miners. We know we now have these Elphapexes, potentially in the future these local techs, so we know that the hash rate is going to continue to go up. Okay, so like when I do calculations and look at profitability, I'm personally factoring in that between now and the next 12 months, hash rate potentially doubling. Is it probably going to double? Probably not, but again, I do calculations based off of more worst case conservative scenarios, because if it makes sense at that point, then that's kind of gives me the go signal. Okay, so make sure you understand that, because again, it is something that is just going to continue to trend up. Again, Scrypt ASICs are some of the most popular ASICs. Okay, so these things are going to continue to sell well. This August batch may be big, and even if it's not that big, the September, October, November, December, and 2025 batches will be. Okay, it's going to be extremely popular. Make sure you fully understand that when you go and mine the ASIC. Like, yes, it is a much more mature network, but just understand it is going to go up. Your yield will go down. Okay. Another big thing we'd like to focus on when we're looking at it are the tokenomics of the coins, right? We kind of saw the future potential. Again, I'm not super bullish. If you are, you are. We look at tokenomics. Is there a halving coming up? And for Litecoin, there is not. They already had theirs back in August of 23. They did have their halving. They don't have a halving until 2027. So we're looking good there. And then Dogecoin is highly inflationary, so nothing to really worry about there. Again, as far as getting reduced yield, the main worry here is just the hash rate. But again, to me, it's kind of a safer play because let's say the hash rate doubles, we're going to just decrease in half there versus things like Caspa, these potential lithium radiant ASICs is just going to be crazy, crazy differences, right? So that to me makes it extremely appealing. So let's look at profitability now for this thing. Okay, so as we punch it into a calculator on Mine the ASIC, this is at a 10-cent kilowatt hour. Current profitability would be your daily revenue at current prices would be about $33. Your electric is about $8. Okay, bringing you to a total of $25 a day profit currently. It's just pretty freaking good. Okay, that is extremely appealing, and considering the fact that it's likely to be consistently fairly profitable, looking really good. Okay, so this is one, again, extremely appealing, even if things were to get cut in half, right? Even if we go from 200 Doge down to 100 Doge and a quarter of LTC a day, if you factor in that Doge will hit 20, 25, 30 cents for a good amount of time throughout the bull market, that's consistent profitability. And that's kind of what I'm banking on. Not necessarily banking on trying to time the all-time high. Like, that is something to look at, something to consider, but realistically, the fact that we're at 15 cents currently, I could easily see us by this fall, winter being 20, 25, 30 cents and being fairly profitable, right? Because at that point, you can essentially double your daily income in terms of fiat value, right? And even if the hash rate does double by then, you would still be making this if the price doubles at that point, right? So this is what has me extremely interested in this thing. Okay, so again, my strategy more so than just hodling the Doge and LTC would be to use something like Unmineable or NiceHash, or just manually sell into these things. Okay, so extremely appealing, very good potential, very good long-term potential, which is what I'm looking for in this next batch of ASICs I do get. Okay. Now let's look at some of the competitors, okay? And this is kind of why we were hoping, or we're kind of guesstimating, that it was likely to come in around 10K or less, was for them to undercut Elphapex, okay? And it seems like we're talking about it in the last ASIC pricing update video we did, when we saw futures orders of this thing go down to like $7,000-8,000, right? We kind of seems like they had the hint, or they had the clue, or they had some kind of insider info that most likely it was going to come in lower. Okay, so that kind of gave us the heads up. So this is where we have to compare. Okay, so just basing it off the specs, we can obviously see the L9 is superior. Okay, the problem is again, future batches are going to be priced lower. Okay, so again, like Cool Dragon, and I've seen some of the other vendors have future batches beginning in September at a much lower price point, bringing it down to 8,000. My thing is, to me, much more appealing price if this was available now. My biggest thing here is they kind of, not necessarily screwed up, but realistically, they should have just come up with their best price right off the rip. Okay, because then at that point, if this thing debuted for these kind of specs at like 75, 8,000, I probably just would have purchased already, right? At that point, it's extremely appealing. They are lowering the price to this point because of Bitmain releasing theirs in August. Okay. For this price point, if we are able to get this guy like 10 to 11K, not appealing, right? Again, we are trying to go with an unknown manufacturer who is new. I'm happy that they did come on board though, right? Because this is what also forced this price to be where it's at. If it wasn't for Elphapex, this thing would probably be 15K plus, right? After coupon. Okay, so very happy for the competition, but to me is just not good enough at this price point. Maybe at like 5 to 6K. Because again, for me, it's not just profitability. It's not just that. I'm taking the risk on an ASIC that's more unproven, okay, versus the Bitmain units tend to be more proven. There's a reason you pay that premium for that, okay, on top of like repairability, durability, all that good stuff. That's something that you have to factor in. And for me, timing is a big thing. For me to take the risk on this guy and potentially miss out on something else, because at this point, again, our timing is very limited for reasonably priced ASICs. If I were to jump into this thing and then 3 months later end up being a flop, I had repair issues, durability issues, by fall of this year, a lot of these ASICs are going to be unaffordable. And at that point, I risked my only chance at getting another ASIC on a flop. At this point, this is why, like, I'm looking at the L9. I'm looking specifically at the KS5 from Bitmain because, again, I don't want to take that much of a risk at this point with getting a dud. If this was 12 months ago, sure, because I still would feel confident that we had potentially another 12 months of bear market action and I could potentially get another good price. At this point, these are the last few months where we can potentially have decent prices. Again, I know it sounds silly calling like $8, $10, $12,000 ASICs decent price, but that's the climate we're in. Okay, because consider the fact that, again, by this fall, this thing is not going to be 10K, 11K, 12K. It's going to be 15, 16, 18, 20K plus. Okay, so for me to take the risk on a new manufacturer, it needs to be an extremely good deal. Okay, so again, if they would have had this price right off the rip, that potentially was good enough for people to jump in, right? Or at least more people. I know a lot of people did go. And again, it does kind of suck for those who ordered, paid the 11, 12K or whatever, and now seeing these prices at like 7K, and then all the way to December 6,700. And I've even seen some of the September listings down in the $6,000 range. Okay, so it's kind of hard to say. Like, again, for me though, again, I want, if this is going to be the last ASIC I purchase, I want it to be a safer play, right? I want it to be something that I feel confident I will be able to get my 12 months at least, hopefully longer than that, mining out of it without any issues. Okay, and I'm not super sold on Elphapex being that. I'm not super sold on like the Easy 100 and things of that sort being that. I want something more reliable, more durable, unless the price is so good or the specs are so good that it's hard to pass up on. And in this case, the specs are not so good in comparison to the L9. They're still decent, right? And a lot of people made the videos like, oh, this is the best Dogecoin miner, knowing that the L9 was coming out. So that was kind of scummy. I'm not really a big fan of that. But the price is what could be more appealing. Okay, so again, at these prices though, it is getting at that point, especially if this thing was available now at these prices. I would definitely be eyeing this a lot more. Okay, so it kind of just depends on your viewpoint, kind of depends on your risk tolerance. Like, again, I have room for one, maybe two ASICs, right? At this point, I would probably have to sell one of my existing ones to make room for a second new ASIC, which is something I'm definitely considering. But for me, this just, the Elphapex just isn't it, right? I would 100% be more for the L9 if we can get it in like this $10,000 price range, right? If it ends up being 12, 13, freaking 14K for the street price, just because there's a lot of hype behind it, people sell it, makes it less appealing. The higher over 10K it goes, the less and less appealing it gets. Okay, so definitely a lot to consider on that front, right? The other big thing to factor in is the potential for this local tech. Okay, this is another one that could be a game changer. And this is going to be 2 gigahash at 145 watts. So the efficiency is the big deal here. So I wouldn't necessarily consider this a super big threat. This isn't something that would make me consider like not getting the L9, mainly because, again, the advantage with the L9 or even the Elphapex is the density aspect. Okay, because again, these things are coming in at $2,000, so about $1,000 a gigahash. Okay, so in order to get 16 gigahash, it's going to be 16K. On top of the fact that we don't necessarily have, hopefully they're still sticking to their date, which is second half of this year. But again, we have yet to see this thing officially a full build done yet. I know they're working on it. Looks like they're getting closer. But this is something that I would definitely still be interested in, but not to buy just solely, right? The play here would be to either get an L9 or an Elphapex, right, depending on the price points, and then to increase the efficiency, buy some of these guys on top of that, okay? Because then at that point, you're kind of getting the best of both worlds, okay? Because again, the price is what's kind of not outlandish, but it's extremely high considering the other price points for the amount of hash you're getting. Okay, so it's just something to consider. So that's why this necessarily wouldn't be like, oh, this thing's gonna wreck it, it's gonna kill it. To me, it would be something I would get in addition to it, right? So very interesting. We're gonna definitely keep our eyes on it. Hopefully we do get an update at Mining Disrupt. But again, this isn't something that would be a killer or something I would say would make me not get the L9, right? If anything, the one that would, because it would be out of, if I'm interested in this algorithm, out of the DG1 Plus and the L9, for me personally, just because again, I want something that's definitely going to have no issues for 12 months, or most likely, it's not definitely, it's not confirmed, it's not for sure, but I would just feel more confident in the L9 lasting me through that period. Because again, let's say I do get it, 4 months later I do have issues, I'm not going to be able to sell it and get something else because everything's going to be through the roof. Okay, so that's kind of the thought process with that. Because again, if we look at profitability with this guy, the 2 gigahash, 145 watts, $4 a day. Okay, so again, the downfall with this guy is just the density aspect, which you would get with the other bigger units. Okay. The other big thing to consider is the L7, right? This is actually another competitor here, and it's them competing with themselves because this thing is still very well profitable, which is insane to say 3 years later, and it's still going to continue to be profitable because arguably we've made it through the toughest times of the bear market, now heading into the better side of the beginning of the bull market. Okay, so this is one that is still up there. It's still going to be sold. There are still orders going into this month. There are still future orders for this thing. There still is going to be a market for this thing, especially towards the end of this year or spring of next year when the L9 is again at those crazy prices at 20K. This thing is going to be appealing when it's at like 8, 10, 12K. Okay, so this one still does have potential. I know some of you guys were bummed out when the L9 got announced, like, oh man, I'm going to get wrecked. It's going to be whatever. I think these things are going to be able to coincide with it. I know a lot of people were hoping for cheaper price points on this thing. It's currently like 5,500, 6,000. I do see the price potentially dropping in August, maybe going down to below 4,500. But again, if Doge pumps, LTC pumps prior to then expect that to be the price range it just kind of remains at. And this one will likely also remain profitable all the way through the freaking bull market. Okay, so for those of you who got in on this thing last year when it was in that 3K range, probably made out pretty well, especially considering the fact you're going to be able to keep this thing all the way through. Okay, so yes, there is a nice efficiency gain, but it's not something that's going to be a deal breaker with the new one just because, again, of the maturity of the network. Okay, so definitely pretty good here, right, for you guys who did get in. So it doesn't mean it's, oh man, I bought the L7, I'm going to get wrecked. I don't think that's going to be the case. I think this guy's going to continue to do extremely well, right? But overall thoughts, kind of just summing everything up, is it one that's on my radar? 100%, right? And again, I do want something of a safer play, but not too safe to the point where like BTC ASICs, again, for having room for one ASIC, not the most appealing thing in the world. This to me is extremely appealing for those reasons. The price point would need to stay in this range though, right? Because if it's at like 12, 13K, because then at that price point, it's similar to where the KS5 is. That's the other one that's on my list. The last thing I'm kind of waiting for is if any, number one, whatever gets announced at mining or at WDMS, right? We do know that Bitmain is going to unveil at least one unit. Looks like it's going to be 2 units. One potentially being a hydro unit. And then if anything gets announced at Disrupt, okay, we know that a lot of the other altcoin ASIC manufacturers are going to be there. We're going to have the Ice Rivers of the world, so we're going to see if maybe they announce anything new, any Elphapex, anything of that sort, before I fully make my decision, right? Chances are it's going to probably be out of the L9 and the KS5, mainly just because most likely if there are Elphapex in the future, whether it's Bitmain, Ice River, whoever, chances are the prices are going to be pretty extreme, right? Realistically, the one that may be potentially appealing is if Ice River does like a miniaturized version, kind of like the KSO, KS1, KS2, etc., etc. Okay, so that's kind of what I'm waiting for. Realistically, it might be kind of a dumb play just because those are likely to be really expensive. I may end up just making a choice between the L9 and the KS5 and doing one of those. And then if something does get announced at one of those, then making it happen to try to get one of those as well. Okay, but that's kind of like the risk factor for me is, what if a freaking Lithium ASIC comes from Bitmain and it ends up being like under 20K or something, right? I know that's extreme, but like the profitability is going to also be extreme, right? So we kind of saw the game plan with like Caspa, so we do know what's going to happen there, what's going to happen with like the hash rate, difficulty, etc., etc. We know we are leading into the bull market. So at this point, again, these are the last few months for affordable ASICs. So that's why if I do decide to get another one, because it's not even sure that I'm going to get another one, it's looking pretty likely, right? I was kind of debating whether to get more GPUs or get another ASIC, but realistically, it's most likely going to be an ASIC, right? So still super torn. It might bite me in the ass to continue to wait, because at this point, like, yes, we retraced a little bit. Hopefully it stays that way. But if it would have stayed like the way it was going prior to this little downfall we were having, and Caspa was going into like the 18, 19, 20 cent range, then that would increase the prices on those KS5s. Maybe the price increases here, and it might be waiting for nothing if those lithium ASICs are like at ridiculous prices, like at 50K or something anyway, right? So what I'm risking is those opportunity costs, okay? Because what if I do wait, and then the prices of both of these guys go up by then, and then I kind of get asked out just sitting on the sidelines, right? So definitely super torn. Definitely going to continue to run numbers, run estimates, look at what things are going like. But the L9 at 10K, extremely appealing. Okay, I kind of want to see what happens with these listings. Some of the vendors may wait until the 14th to fully commit, maybe see what their allocations are, and then kind of go from there. But again, chances are, again, Scrypt ASICs are extremely popular. Okay, so I'm definitely super torn. Definitely continue to go back and forth, just because, again, I'm a small fry, small at-home miner with like limited space, right? Realistically, may end up getting 2 ASICs, but it may cause me to sell one of the existing ones, right? Which was kind of something I was considering anyway, and this would expedite the process. So like for me, waiting till August for either this guy or the other one is a non-issue for me, because that just gives me a few more months to see what I'm going to do with them, with the existing ASICs, and see what I'm going to replace it with. Okay, so definitely a lot to think about. Is definitely one that, because of the price point, it is the price point I wanted, right? So this is around the range I was hoping for. So it's definitely on the consideration list. So it's one that has me kind of like, oh, do I pull the trigger now? We're going to have to wait and see, right? I'm trying to force myself to wait just in case we do get not only the announcements we're potentially expecting, but something else coming out, right? Who's to say other ASICs don't come out? Again, WDMS, Mining Disrupt are 2 of the bigger shows of the year. We do know there will be announcements. Trying to force myself to wait, because I don't want to not wait, buy one of these things, and then freaking something comes out at a killer price, right? So it's hard to say. We're going to have to wait and see. But overall, though, definitely appealing at this price point. We're going to have to wait and see what the other stores tend to list at, but I'm definitely going to be eyeing it. I will definitely keep you guys updated as I see prices, especially after this new information that we got, right? Let me know in the comments, guys, what you guys are thinking. Is this kind of what you were thinking price-wise? Were you expecting to be higher? Were you expecting to be lower? Is this something that's on your radar? How bullish are you on Doge? Let me know what you guys are thinking, guys. I know this is definitely a big one we've all been waiting for. Let me know what you guys think, guys. Please comment, like, and subscribe, guys. Thank you for watching. I really do appreciate it, guys, and I am out.